New Horizons, Part 1, by Grid and Ad. It was a momentous occasion. The world watched as the crew of the first flight to the Red Planet set foot on its surface. Captain Saul said his prescribed line as he stepped from the small lander onto the dusty, orange ground. The rest of the team followed, and then started on their assigned tasks. They only had 3 days to get as much research done as possible within a 3-day limit before they returned home. Saul unloaded the rover and generator. Wensley, the biologist-geologist, started to take soil samples, and the engineer, Naitani, set up a small antenna for future missions. As soon as she booted it up for a test, it chimed that it was receiving a signal. It was a low-band signal that had barely enough power to register on the antenna. Puzzled, she gave the antenna a few percussive taps to see if it was simply a boot error. It chimed again that it had a signal, which was not right since the main transceiver on the orbiter wasn't yet transmitting. "Wensley, could you send a request to the orbiter for a comms check? I'm having some issues with the low band on the one I'm setting up." "Affirmative. What's the issue?" Wensley asked. "Interference from the media transmission?" "No, it keeps saying it has detected a signal, but I haven't aligned it yet. It's pointed the wrong way, out towards the gas giant," Naitani replied. "Never mind that there shouldn't be any signal being sent out here on this band yet." "Yeah, that's odd. Can you make out what the signal is?" "No, it's too weak for this receiver. I can't make it out." "It's probably a signal echo, but I'll get Stucky to point the orbiter's receiver in that direction and see if they get anything. Should have a response for you shortly." It wasn't long until Naitani got her answer. Stucky, up on the orbiter, had switched to her radio channel. "Naitani?" Stucky sounded odd, as if he was expecting a heavy object he couldn't see to fall on him. "You said you were picking up a signal, but couldn't make any details out?" "Yes. Were you able to replicate the problem?" Naitani asked. "Is there another issue? You sound odd." "Yes," Stucky responded. "Your equipment isn't malfunctioning. There actually is a signal." "You're joking. There's nothing out here. If anything, it's probably some phenomenon involving a crystal and some kind of vibration for the planetary winds," she stated, a tad forcefully. "I'm not joking," he responded in a flat voice, "and we need to let the captain know. There's another issue. The signal says, hello." Back in the landing craft, Captain Saul, the tallest of the crew, sat in the flight seat. Wensley and Naitani were seated in the crash couches. Stucky was listening in over the communication system. Saul spoke, his voice steady. "So to my understanding, we have received a signal from the largest gas giant in our system, directed at us, the same day we set foot on another planet, and that signal just happens to say, hello." Naitani fidgeted with her straps. "Yes, when you put it that way, it sounds very strange." "It sounds like it could be contact with an alien race to me," Wensley added. "This could make our mission infinitely more important than it already was." "It sounds like something we might never be allowed to talk about," Stucky added glumly over the radio. "What it is out of our hands. We have a responsibility to report any urgent findings immediately," Saul stated. "Admittedly, those guidelines didn't cover this scenario, but nonetheless we need to send this information back home ASAP and get to finishing our mission. Does everyone agree?" The crew confirmed, and while Stucky sent the transmission back to the Science Center, using the encrypted non-public channel, the rest of the crew left the lander and returned to their tasks, but with a noticeable lack of enthusiasm. The remaining 2 days of their mission passed uneventfully, the weak signal still continuing to broadcast. They started the return voyage home amidst a flurry of speculation and theories by government specialists and the scientific community that had been let in on the secret. After a tense year of political debates, theological questioning, and philosophical bickering, the decision was made to send an expedition to whatever it was that was broadcasting the signal. The same crew that received the signal was designated to go by way of experience, and the other trained astronauts had all developed a case of frigid feet. Saul, Wensley, Naitani, and Stucky spent 9 months traveling to the signal. Most of the trip was spent debating and arguing what the signal was. Winsley had taken the stance that it was an alien exploration craft. Natani had solidified her theory of it being a crystal of metallic hydrogen being statically charged to produce a radio signal, then, being vibrated by high speed, high-pressure winds made the repeating message. When pressed, she tended to gloss over the science of it rather quickly. Stuckey held that it was a trap set by opposing governments to destroy their long-range craft and discredit their astronomy division. Captain Saul didn't say much, but mostly kept the argument civil. As they approached the gas giant, the signal's point of origin was narrowed down to an asteroid within the gas giant's ring, which presented a few issues of how to approach the source, or rather, if they should approach it. Saul started. "I think we should send one of our small satellites to take a look. It won't risk us being pierced by micrometeors, and won't waste fuel if it turns out to be natural radio." "I'm not sure that's the case anymore," Natani said, deflated. That assumption was based on the source actually being inside the atmosphere. Out here, I'm unsure how a naturally occurring radio would exist, let alone one outputting a steady signal. "I think the satellite is a good idea, but I've been looking at objects in the ring, and I'm not seeing the usual range of sizes. If I had to say, I'd say we found a bald patch in the ring. It might be safe to approach ourselves," Winsley added. "Stuckey, what do you think?" Saul asked. "If you have a third opinion, I'd like to hear it." "I think we should approach ourselves. I want to find out what's making this signal, and Natani is right. It isn't something natural." Stuckey sighed. "And I just know that if we half-ass it and play it safe, we'll regret it and probably have a lot of angry people back home, too." "Are we all agreed?" the captain asked. "If so, let's get to it." As the craft came in from the south hemisphere up towards the ring, several things soon stood out. There seemed to be a rather sparse section in the ring around the signal source. As they gradually came closer, Stuckey saw something move. "Captain, I have movement. On the far side of that empty area, something is interacting with that small curved rock," he exclaimed. An edge of excitement tinged his voice. "I see it, Winsley. Can you train our telescope on it? Natani, can you get the radio ready and tuned into the right channel?" "Yes, sir. Can do." "I've got it on the scope, Captain. Should be viewable on Channel 3, Winsley soon said. "It's definitely alien, sir." "Radio is ready as well, sir. Just waiting on you to be your usual eloquent self," Natani followed. They all looked at the thing through their terminals. The source was revealed, and it was rather underwhelming. It really wasn't much to look at. A small 20-unit craft, bit of a lengthened hexagon, with engines on two opposing sides, a central bay, and a sensor ball on the belly. They could even see fasteners on the panels. 2 arms came from the bay interior with a strange red emblem on each arm. The 2 arms held a small asteroid, as several smaller arms seemed to dismantle the asteroid. The strangest thing was that it was broadcasting. A cheery little tune about resource extraction of all things. Hi-ho, it's off to work I go." Perplexed, Saul transmitted, a bit hesitant. "Unidentified object. Do you hear me? Please respond." A voice came over the radio, deep but cheerful, almost chipper, as if the speaker had just received good news. "Oh, finally! I've been wondering when you would show up. I've been waiting here since I first said hello. You guys must be really shy." "We weren't actually sure what you were. We came here to find out what the source was," Saul replied after a moment's thought. I suppose that's a safe bet. Anyways, you're here now," the voice replied, somehow adding another layer of cheer. "And I'm real too. Definitely not a naturally occurring radio." Natani blurted out, overriding Saul's response. "How do you know what we said? The radio wasn't even on when I said that." "I may be using a simple radio, but that doesn't mean I'm simple. Your encryption methods are almost non-existent. I've been listening since I first saw you guys land on the red planet. That really got the nostalgia flowing for me," the radio responded, with an exhale that sounded strangely digital. At this, Saul forcefully shut the other mics down, except his. "You've been spying on us? What are you here for? I must tell you our government will respond accordingly to whatever actions you take against Oh no, I'd never. Though your race does have some pretty effective chemical rockets, my race doesn't need any of your technology," the voice interjected, no longer as cheerful as it was, but not put off either. Saul asked, "If we have nothing to offer you, why are you here?" "Honestly, I got bored. I picked up your transmissions as I was in a nearby system for a surveying contract. I figured watching you guys would be a nice way to kill time while I waited for my next contract," it responded. "Also, you do have something to offer. My race loves to meet new people, and I think we'd get along like two peas in a pod." "So, you just want to know us?" Saul asked, looking at the rest of the crew, all of which had hopeful looks. "Absolutely. Humanity is all about friendly relations," the radio chimed. "Where it's applicable. I realize I know who you are, but you don't know me. So, let me formally introduce myself. I'm Eli, a digitized human persona embedded in a Class 1 mining and surveying probe of the Vesuvian Guild, Sol System. I can't wait to introduce you, the Glint, to the rest of humanity."